It's Monday, February 9th. This is CTV at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. Halifax Transit proposes new buses, new routes, but faces an old problem. NB Power tells hearings the province needs a controversial gas plant for its future.
An Alberta Clipper moving across the country is set to bring the region snow on Wednesday.
Live from our Maritime's News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Todd Battis.
Good evening. Halifax Transit has weighed in on the city's congestion problem. The service unveiled an ambitious proposal with changes to routes and more buses to make it faster and more reliable. But the plan faces a couple of significant challenges: cash and council. CTV's Callum Smith reports.
It's been a decade since the last transit service plan was before Halifax Council, and a lot has changed since then, like a 22% jump in population. Now the core service plan is being shown to the Transportation Standing Committee.
This is the first time I've read transit reports and was actually excited and optimistic about the future.
Over 3 years, 21 changes are proposed, impacting 25 routes, or 37% of them, based on rider feedback. From adding some additional trips at key times, route changes, and a new run from West Bedford.
It's called Route 95 Brookline. This route was conceived because we identified both West Bedford and Bears Lake as growing communities that need better transit.
Reducing overcrowding and increasing reliability is the goal. Also expanding airport service from 22 hours to 24 hours per day.
This is an exciting opportunity to introduce 24-hour transit service to Halifax for the first time ever, and it allows us to explore the feasibility of future 24-hour services.
But some aren't so pleased with what is or isn't on the table.
Transit being a core service, well, it's a core service for some. It's not a core service for all of the residents of HRM, so it's unacceptable. It really is.
Profound disappointment. I mean, if you're in Prospect or St. Margaret's Bay, this represents a letdown.
Staff say reallocating buses or drivers would be difficult, so new resources are needed. The plan calls for $75 million, mostly for 30 new buses, with the remaining $22 million for operations. A total hike of about $64 to the average tax bill over 3 years. Despite her excitement, Councillor Trish Purdy raised concern about the proposal's cost.
Transportation is imperative to people's quality of life and their work and their recreation.
We have a city that has the bones, but we have to grow. And that means our transit has to grow.
So it really is a double-edged sword. We heard staff say congestion is a key reason why on-time performance continues to decline. The goal, of course, is to have a better transit system so that people will leave their cars at home, but until then, the congestion issues will persist. Now, it's important to note this plan doesn't actually start until 2027-28 if approved. That means, as of now, it won't be part of this budget cycle. Todd.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Callum Smith starting us off in Halifax. Thank you. Hearings have begun into whether a gas plant near Sackville, New Brunswick should be approved. The plant has been controversial, but NB Power insists it's necessary for the province's future. CTV's Laura Brown has more.
NB Power executives were in the hot seat at this Energy and Utilities Board hearing, peppered with questions on why a natural gas-fired generation plant in the Tantramar area is necessary.
We're looking at one project to address this.
This is the problem NB Power is facing, an energy shortfall by 2028. So they've entered into an agreement with American company Pro Energy, which would build and operate the plant, selling up to 500 megawatts back to the Crown Corp.
This gas plant has got to go! Hey, hey! Oh, no!
But the project has been divisive from the start. The surrounding community very vocal about their concerns, protesting outside the hearing this morning. Back inside, the panel was asked just how much it will cost taxpayers to buy back the power. Chief Commercial Officer Brad Cody wouldn't give an exact figure, citing confidentiality.
We do think it's a significant amount of money, if I could say it that way. We don't take it lightly.
He said the plant itself is estimated to cost ProEnergy over $1 billion to build. So it's likely to cost the utility more than $1 billion, Cody said.
We would also have to cover the proponent's operation and maintenance, the cost of the financing of the project, including return on equity and return on debt for that, plus any insurances.
NB Power filed new evidence 1 week ago, signing an agreement with Nova Scotia to cost-share the project and allow its neighbour up to 100 megawatts of power. The utility is also working on a deadline. ProEnergy wants the EUB's approvals by June, or it could walk away. This hearing continues all week. Laura Brown, CTV News, Fredericton.
A 19-year-old has been arrested for attempted murder after a stabbing in downtown Halifax last night. It happened in the early evening on Spring Garden Road. A 19-year-old man was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect was located and arrested nearby. 19-year-old Brennan Herdman faces charges of attempted murder and assault with a weapon. The victim and the suspect are not known to each other, but are believed to have had a dispute just before the stabbing. The former CEO of the region's children's hospital is out of jail after she was granted bail as she seeks appeal of her fraud conviction. Tracy Kitch has been convicted twice of fraud after she used her IWK credit card to pay for personal expenses. A conservative estimate of more than $30,000 was the evidence presented at trial. Kitch did pay back the money before the first trial.
She's surrendering her passport to remain in the country, and that satisfies us that she'll surrender into custody and any residual concerns we have about public confidence in her release.
Tracy Kitch was released on a $20,000 surety and has to abide by numerous conditions. Kitch will be back in court in the fall. The jury in the Jansen-Baker double murder trial once again was shown graphic photos during testimony today. CTV's Derek Haggett is covering proceedings and sent this update from Moncton Court.
The fifth week of the Jansen-Baker double murder trial began today with the cross-examination of a civilian member of the RCMP who analyzed thousands of Facebook messages as part of the investigation. The witness previously testified about messages sent in the days following a major drug raid across the province on August 28, 2019. Many of those messages revolved around the arrest of Jesse Logue, who was charged with drug and firearm offenses following the massive police operation. Court heard associates of Logue were communicating back and forth on Facebook in the days leading up to the murders of Bernard and Rosemarie Saunier. The Dieppe couple were shot and killed in their home on September 7, 2019. The couple's son, Silvio, came up frequently in the Facebook posts. Court had already heard he was involved in the drug trade and was the owner of a downtown Moncton duplex raided by police. Baker has pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of the elderly couple. The next witness was a now retired RCMP forensic specialist who was recalled to the stand. Cross-examination lasted most of the afternoon, with the defense asking specific questions about how the witness processed the crime scene inside the Saunier's home. Photos of Bernard Saunier's body were shown in court, as well as pools of blood and blood splatter on the walls. The day ended with court hearing pre-recorded testimony from a neighbor of the Sauniers who says she heard a loud scream the morning of the murders. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
It is a beautiful sunset at Peggy's Cove, where it's currently -4 degrees. Let's bring in CTV meteorologist Kaylin Mitchell. And Kaylin, I know you're going to talk about this in a moment. Yeah. You got some special weather statements on the horizon as well.
Yeah, we do, and that's for Wednesday's weather. Nothing big coming up as we make our way through tonight and into tomorrow. That was a beautiful view there out at Peggy's Cove. Did see some cloud cover there. We are seeing some cloud cover increase for parts of the Maritime, so we're moving into this evening. Cloudiest conditions tonight are going to be around Prince Edward Island, the north and east of Nova Scotia. And underneath that cloud cover, I am expecting some flurries. And there's even a chance that a few of those flurries could drift down towards central areas of Nova Scotia as we make our way through the night. A few clouds coming into New Brunswick, but there should be some pretty clear sky for much of the night in that province, and certainly some clear breaks in the southwest of Nova Scotia. So it's taking a look at our cloud outlook. You can see where the cloudier conditions are expected in through the grays as we move through this evening and tonight. Prince Edward Island, the north and east of Nova Scotia. So for New Brunswick and for parts of the west of Nova Scotia, pretty ideal conditions for some night sky viewing. It is the last quarter moon tonight, 48% illuminated. Now that won't be rising until after 3 a.m., so you don't have to worry about any moonlight really if you're out there this evening and tonight to do some planet or star gazing. And speaking of planet gazing, Jupiter will be high above the southeastern horizon this evening. That should be pretty easy to spot. Aurora unlikely to be observed tonight. There will be a pass from the International Space Station Wednesday morning, but we're not going to see it here in the Maritimes because it's going to be too cloudy and there's going to be some snow falling, because Wednesday is when we have that Alberta Clipper coming in. And this is why we have this special weather statement that has been issued for much of the province of Nova Scotia, with some exceptions. Parts of Cumberland, Colchester counties, northern Inverness County, and Victoria County in Cape Breton. But the rest of the region, potential 10 to 25 centimeters of snow. There will be snow into other parts of the Maritimes as well from that weather system, and we will take a closer look at that when I'm back with the full forecast just a little bit later on.
A bit of a novelty there. It's on a Wednesday, Thursday, not a Monday.
That's right. There you go. We've changed up the schedule a little bit.
We'll find the silver lining.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you later in the show. Businesses forced to close because of a weekend fire in Dartmouth are scrambling tonight. The stubborn fire ripped through a partially empty plaza. We get the latest from CTV's Hafsa Arif.
The flames are doused, but for these businesses along Pleasant Street, the damage is still unfolding.
I could only stand there for 10 seconds because the smoke and the smell of the smoke was so strong.
They had those takeout trays that have been sitting out. All that has to be removed.
From the outside, there's no visible damage to the Pleasant Street diner, but inside, the smell of smoke lingers.
Some residue here and there, so that all that has to be cleaned. Our heat pumps have to be cleaned because they were on during the fire. We have no power, so all our product has to be gotten rid of as well.
The fire broke out last Saturday night in a vacant unit which years ago housed a Sobeys store. Firefighters quickly escalated their response, calling in dozens of crews to keep the flames from spreading.
We had about 12 fire apparatus on scene for that event, which gives you roughly 50 to 60 firefighters are used for that fire.
Fire officials say no one was hurt and the blaze never spread beyond the vacant unit.
Unoccupied businesses like that, they're very concerning to us. They come with a lot of unknowns, altered layouts. Some of them may have limited fire protection systems inside. They may not be working anymore.
In the meantime, business owners are left waiting for power to return and for the long cleanup ahead.
Spoke to our insurance company today and the restoration company, and it's going to take like 2 to 3 weeks to properly clean the restaurant. Everything has to be gotten rid of for all safety reasons.
Investigators remain on the scene to determine what caused the fire. Hafsa Arif, CTV News, Dartmouth.
Many New Brunswickers don't have a family doctor. Soon, they won't be able to turn to an online provider that has bridged the healthcare gap. The eVisit NB virtual care service is ending in March. CTV's Avery McRae reports.
Around 238,000 New Brunswickers don't have a family doctor or are attached to a collaborative care clinic. For those people, the eVisit NB virtual option has helped them avoid long ER waits. But come the end of March, the service will no longer continue. In a statement to CTV, eVisit NB CEO Dr. Hannes Chatur says he is disappointed his company was not selected to continue providing service to the province. It reads in part, over the past 4 years, eVisit NB has completed more than 1 million consults for more than 300,000 patients with our team of over 165 nurse practitioners from New Brunswick and across Canada.
The decision was made to go out to market with an RFP for those services at the conclusion of the eVisit contract.
At an unrelated event in St. John, the minister responsible for addictions, Robert McKee, says the winning contract has been awarded and a deal is being worked through. The province isn't saying they're dropping eVisit NB, but in an unrelated Facebook post, Premier Susan Holt said there will be no break in service. CTV has reached out to both the Premier's and Health Minister's office and is awaiting a response. Opposition health critic and PC MLA Bill Hogan says from what he has heard, the European-based company Found Ever will be awarded the contract, but questions why the change was needed.
Why would we look elsewhere when we have the answer and one that's working extremely well in New Brunswick?
Why would we put out an RFP and not just extend their contract?
In a statement sent to CTV, New Brunswick Medical Society President Dr. Lise Babin says the eVisit NB service was always understood to be a bridge to a more integrated and coordinated virtual care model. The society was not involved in the decision-making process, but says they are looking forward to learning more about the new service. Avon McCrae, CTV News, St. John.
Still with healthcare, we're learning more tonight about an error which saw personal Medicare information sent to hundreds of wrong addresses in New Brunswick. The province says 365 people received other folks' Medicare information, along with their own, in the mail. Today, Service New Brunswick tells us the error was discovered a week ago, and the office has isolated the error, having occurred over a 2-day period. The province says it began to inform people who were affected last week, but it's unclear how many people still need to be contacted. The Office of the Ombuds says anybody who is concerned about their health information being mishandled should contact its office. It's taken nearly 4 years and almost $4 million, but renovations are complete at the West St. John Addiction Treatment Facility. Upgrades were made in 3 phases to 3 buildings at the Ridge Addiction and Mental Health Campus. The improvements added more beds, more options for treatment and counseling, and overall upgrades like a revamped teaching kitchen and sensory room.
The programs and the services, we used our evidence-based and trauma-informed process to ensure that everything is really designed with the client in mind, and that the services that we're able to offer are really going to meet all of their unique needs and really help them on their recovery path.
The upgrades were announced 4 years ago. The price tag is split between the province, the Health Authority, and the St. John Hospital Foundation.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
New Brunswick's government wants ideas of how to deal with a ballooning deficit. In Nova Scotia, the province's credit rating has been downgraded in response to its deficit. There are calls for spending cuts and fears of job cuts. CTV's Jesse Thomas looks at what options are available.
Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston revealed last month that the province's deficit had grown to $1.4 billion, up $100 million more than the last forecasted update in December. The record deficit prompted S&P Global to downgrade Nova Scotia's credit rating, largely based on over-budgeted spending on health care, support for seniors, government salaries, and disaster relief assistance. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is urging the Houston government to rein in spending.
Governments can't spend money indefinitely. It's going to come back to haunt them, and whether that's through, there's only 2 ways that can haunt them. It can be service cuts or higher taxes, and I don't think Nova Scotians want either right now.
The Nova Scotia General Employees Union represents more than 8,700 public sector workers and is worried about cuts to the workforce and programming. As the Houston government tries to find savings, the union believes the province is looking at a 10% cut to provincial services.
And we're very concerned about what that cut could mean to very important programs, staffing positions, and the way services are delivered in this province.
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation says the government should freeze all spending outside of healthcare and review all department spending.
And they need to make an honest effort to find efficiencies within government so that we're not seeing, this problem happen year after year and more tax dollars being wasted on big interest payments rather than return to people's pockets through tax cuts or through improvements in service.
The province's finance minister was unavailable for an interview, but a spokesperson did say they're aware of S&P Global's downgrade and are factoring that into their budget preparations. The budget is expected to be tabled later this month. Jesse Thomas, CTV News, Halifax.
Coming up after 6:30, we'll speak with a former premier about how maritime governments might respond to overspending. And you can read more about this at our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. Rob Lance has returned to the Premier's chair in Prince Edward Island. The one-time interim Premier stepped down to run for the PC leadership. His win on the weekend puts him back in the island's top job. CTV's Mariah Saru reports.
Cheers around the room and warm hugs from cabinet ministers as Rob Lance and PEI's PC party celebrated a new chapter after a leadership race that split the room right to the end. Now, as the next premier, Lance is already turning his attention to talks with Ottawa.
Energy. We have some energy capacity issues that everyone's well aware of.
Last-minute voters had the chance to cast their ballots earlier in the day, facing a choice between a familiar face or a fresh start.
One of them is, we saw his performance already, and I think he's doing great.
Questions. Gets us saying how I'm voting, isn't it?
Lance served as PEI's interim premier for most of 2025, before stepping down in December to pursue the permanent leadership position of the party. His opponent was legal and business leader Mark Ledwell, considered an underdog in the campaign. Ledwell spoke to CTV News before the results were released.
Well, I had a heavy tax reform package, a lot of reduction in taxes, a lot of moving money back to small business.
It was a tight race, Lance edging out a win with just 53% of the vote. Despite that, he says the party is united.
Leadership's races by their nature are oppositional, but they're not divisional.
If turnout is any indication, members were engaged, with 87% casting ballots. Maria Saru, CTV News, Charlottetown.
Time for our first break on this Monday evening. On the other side, a cold February night. Kaylin has a look at the weather week ahead. But first, the chill of winter tourism.
We're hoping that this February will bring more people to enjoy the winter wonderland.
Trying to cash in on perfect winter conditions in the Maritimes. We'll take a look at that after the break. Good to have you with us on this Monday night. WestJet is adding more flights to the East Coast based on customer demand. 7 routes from Halifax to Canadian destinations: Toronto, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Regina, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver. They will operate through the summer. The announcement comes as the airline dropped numerous routes from western cities to the United States because of slow sales. Now, Nova Scotia is hoping to increase winter tourism. This is shaping up to be an old-time season with plenty of snow and cold weather. In Cape Breton, some tour operators have yet to cash in on these ideal conditions, as our Ryan McDonald found out.
It might not have been the Winter Olympics, but for these folks, a Saturday carving down the mountain at Ski Benyon was the next best thing.
So when we get snow on a Monday, the rest of the week, we have lineups.
Well, for some people, it was the Olympics getting them into the skiing spirit. For others, it was back-to-back Monday snowstorms. It's left the hill powdery white, a big difference from how some other recent winters started out.
It was mid-January to almost end of January sometimes before we were able to get even a run open. So right now, we're pretty close to having the whole mountain open, and we're way ahead of schedule.
Or earlier opening than last year, which last year was a record.
It's a similar story at Ski Cape Smoky, where visitations are slightly up, but a few weekends in, the amount of people who have come to the Cabot Trail to hit the slopes has still been a bit less than they hoped for.
Most places in the world, when it snows and you get a lot of snow, everybody cannot get giddy up to get there. In Nova Scotia, the response is a little bit delayed, so we're hoping that this February will bring more people to enjoy the winter wonderland.
Bookings this year haven't been terribly strong.
The owner of this inn just outside of Bedeck says that's partly because it's their first winter open in years, but with prime conditions now for snowmobiling and other activities that take people deep into the beauty of the Cape Breton Highlands, he's optimistic for the rest of the season.
We've got lots of access to snowmobile trails. The cross-country ski up at Eck Nordic and Cape Smoky is booming. So there's lots of great options and lots of trails for snowmobile or snowshoeing and hiking as well.
That optimism is shared on the slopes of Smoky, where some who have taken a weekend trip here seem to have left wanting more.
Some of them even said to me that they will plan their trips to go only to Smoky in the future and cancel their trips to Mont Tremblant and places like this, which is always really, really nice to hear.
And with 6 weeks or more left in the season, the hope is that the island's best days for winter visitation are still to come. Ryan McDonald, CTV News, Benyon, Nova Scotia.
And Cape Breton is one of those spots that could be in store for a significant snowfall. Kalen will talk about that in his forecast. But it's flurries in eastern parts of the Maritimes tomorrow. We have that in 2 minutes. Beautiful shot looking towards downtown Sydney Harbour. Nice day in Cape Breton for the most part.
Yeah, they did see some cloud cover increase throughout the day. And now as we make our way through this evening and tonight, Cape Breton's going to be mostly cloudy with a chance of some flurries and parts of Cape Breton underneath that special weather statement. It's in effect for Wednesday.
So the snow we talked about, Ryan McDonald was talking about in his report a few minutes ago, they can just expect to add to that.
That's right. So let's begin by talking about that next weather system. So this is an Alberta Clipper. That is a fast-moving low-pressure system that develops in the province of Alberta, usually on the lee side of the Rocky Mountains, and then it speeds its way across the country. And this time it's being driven by a very straight jet stream that's moving from the west off towards the east. Now it is going to dip a little bit as it comes in over the Great Lakes and head down initially into the northeastern United States, but then it'll take a pass to the south of Nova Scotia and then up along the Atlantic coastline of Nova Scotia on its way to Newfoundland. And as it makes that movement from the south off towards the northeast, it is going to be bringing snow back into the Maritime region. So let's put this into motion here and take a look at the timing. There's the snow making its way through Ontario and Quebec and arriving early Wednesday morning around the southwest of New Brunswick and the southwest of Nova Scotia. So here's a closer look at how that snow is expected to develop through the day on Wednesday. Yes, it begins in the southwest of New Brunswick and the southwest of Nova Scotia very early Wednesday morning, but will develop from the west to the east as we go through the morning hours and into the afternoon. There's the center of the low just curling its way just past the southwest of Nova Scotia. Maybe a little indication there that there's a chance that maybe some ice pellets mix in for some coastal areas. Other locations, though, we'll continue to see some snow as we go through the afternoon into the evening. And Wednesday evening and Wednesday night, as the center of the low is now moving up just off the Atlantic coastline of Nova Scotia, we'll see some more snow wrap in behind it back towards PEI and eastern areas of Nova Scotia. Parts of Prince Edward Island in the east of Nova Scotia could still have steady snow falling early Thursday morning. Other parts of the Maritimes at that time will be down to a chance of some flurries. Winds with this weather system don't look like they're going to be a big issue with it. They don't look particularly strong. They will be a bit blustery at times, some gusts between 20 and 50 kilometers per hour. That is enough to blow some of that falling snow around. So there could be still some periods of some blowing and some drifting snow. As far as the overall snowfall amounts go, here's my initial outlook into this weather system. Widespread totals, 10 to 20 centimeters across much of Nova Scotia. There may be some pockets that get a little bit higher than the 20 centimeter mark around Atlantic coastal areas of that province. 10 to 20 centimeters of snow possible in parts of Kings County, Prince Edward Island, and then 5 to 10 centimeters of snow for the remainder of Prince Edward Island. 5 to 10 centimeters of snow across southern areas of New Brunswick, with the remainder of New Brunswick seeing up to 5 centimeters in periods of lighter snow. At times this past weekend, it was showing that maybe most of that snow would fall offshore, but we did see that change over the last 24 hours to bring it a little bit further into the Maritime region. So I'll update, of course, in the forecast for tomorrow. In the meantime, though, taking a look at more immediate weather conditions for tonight and into Tuesday, there will be some increase in cloudiness tonight and some flurries expected in eastern Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. Those flurries around for the start of the day for tomorrow, but down to a chance of flurries for the afternoon. A mostly sunny day for New Brunswick on Tuesday and a mix of sun and cloud for southwestern areas of Nova Scotia. Winds in the forecast for tonight and for tomorrow remain out of the north and northwest. There will be some gusts between 20 and 40 kilometers per hour, maybe peaking a little bit closer to 50 around parts of the north shore of Nova Scotia and Cape Breton. Low temperatures tonight for the Maritimes, falling several degrees below zero for Nova Scotia and PEI, and into a range of -10 to -17 for New Brunswick. High temperatures tomorrow in the north of New Brunswick between -2 and -6, with central and southern parts of the province with high temperatures mostly between -4 and 0. For Prince Edward Island for tomorrow, cloudier, scattered flurries and high temperatures for most communities around -3 or -4, including -4 at Summerside and Charlottetown. In the east of Nova Scotia, it's cloudy periods and scattered flurries with high temperatures between 0 and -4. And for northern and central parts of the province, high temperatures tomorrow between 0 and -3 with a mix of sun and cloud. A mix of sun and cloud into the west and southwest of Nova Scotia with a breezy north wind and high temperatures between between -1 and -4. In the 7-day outlook for New Brunswick coming up on Wednesday, it's that snow in the forecast, followed by a chance of flurries on Thursday, sunshine for the end of the week on Friday, followed by a chance of flurries at the start of the weekend, and then a mix of sun and cloud for Sunday and Monday. For Nova Scotia, it's snow developing through the day on Wednesday. There may be snow ongoing for eastern parts of the province into Thursday morning, a chance of flurries for the remainder of the province on Thursday. Friday, a mix of sun and cloud, then a chance of flurries on both Saturday and Sunday, and then a mix of sun and cloud for Monday. And for Prince Edward Island in the forecast, snow developing on Wednesday. It's possible some of that snow holds on to Thursday morning. It'll ease off to some flurries, then a mix of sun and cloud for Friday. We have a chance of flurries in the weekend forecast with highs around -2, and then a mix of sun and cloud on Monday. Todd.
Okay, we'll see you later for the wake-up weather. Next, we'll talk to a former premier about provincial deficits and the options for governments. Stay with us.
Mornings with Aaron and Peter.
Passport to Paradise continues. Win your way right here to Beaches, Turks and Caicos.
But time's running out, so make sure you get your passports weekdays starting at 6 a.m.
All three maritime provincial governments are running deficits in the hundreds of millions of dollars. How can they get their finances in order? Former New Brunswick Premier Sean Graham certainly knows about dealing with deficit. He faced them during his term and the tough decisions that politicians make. And we've reached him in Singapore, where it's, what, like the middle of the morning or something?
There is a 12 hours difference, so yeah, it is the middle of the morning here, Todd.
Well, we certainly appreciate you getting up or staying up to be with us. You're in Asia, the trade talks. Why don't you tell us a bit about why you're there?
Yes, well, I'm here for the Canada-Asia Pacific Foundation annual general meeting, and there's a huge symposium today that's going to be held on trade with Asia. The federal ministers here, a number of key ambassadors from the region are here as well, and a number of business and academic leaders looking at ways to diversify trade into Asia for Canada, which is critical right now as we try to uncouple from that huge supply chain to the south of us.
Right. So given the uncertainty in trade, how does that factor into provincial budgets, into how premiers and cabinets look at spending going forward?
Well, today, unfortunately, governments in Atlantic Canada and across the country are facing massive deficit situations because of the current economic climate. I'll give some historical context. 20 years ago, our government was running balanced budgets until the global economic recession hit in 2009, which had a huge impact, not just on our budget, but across the country. And at the time, we turned actually to the governor of the Bank of Canada, Mark Carney, who is our current prime minister, and we followed the lead of the government of Stephen Harper, and we had to move to deficit spending to help stimulate the economy, to bring us through that recessionary period. And following our government, the government of David Alward, unfortunately stayed in deficit positions, following the balanced budgets that we were under. And it was only then under the government of Brian Gallant that they were able to return to balanced budgets. And that was due not to decisions that the government of the day made in cutting, but it was made by growing the economic pie. There was increased transfers from the federal government that allowed the government of Brian Gallant to move to a surplus situation. And then the government of Blaine Higgs, as we know, was able to grow huge surpluses. And that was due to, again, population growth, more people coming into New Brunswick, which allowed a bigger piece of an economic pie to pay for services. And then today we see the government of Susan Holt, which had campaigned on balanced budgets, actually having huge deficits. And those deficits have been attributed to the slowdown in the economy. So to give an historical context, 20 years ago, our budget was approximately $7 billion, and the current budget that the whole government's going to be bringing forward is going to be over $14 billion. So we haven't doubled the size of our infrastructure during that period. What's occurred is the growth of the civil service and the cost of maintaining that civil service within New Brunswick. That is a huge amount of the cost that the government has to make decisions around today on attempting to move back to a balanced situation.
So Premier Holt has said she would like to hear from New Brunswickers as to what they might suggest the province can do to help alleviate some of that burden of the deficit. Premier Houston has cut taxes. It's unlikely he'd be willing to increase them again. We're hearing from nervous public sector unions. Really, what are the options?
Well, the options are very limited. As I said, in 20 years, we've doubled the size of the budget in the province. But at the same time, we have not doubled the amount of revenue coming into cost, to cover those services. That's why we're in a deficit situation today. In 2008, our government made the difficult decision to freeze wages we were the first jurisdiction in Canada, actually, to put in a wage freeze of 0 and 0 over a 2-year period. And we honored the collective agreements, but it also meant that going forward, all new contracts signed would have a 0 and 0. And that was built into, if you're an economist or a financial planner, that's built into the base. So that means every year going forward, you don't have to pay that salary increase. So it did give some budget cushion for successive governments coming after us to give them some budget flexibility. This current government doesn't have that. So they're either going to have to cut services, and that's difficult, or they're going to have to reduce the wages that are being paid or the amount of people collecting those wages within the civil service.
What's the risk of doing nothing?
Well, we can't do nothing. And the government has to make the change that's needed in the second year of their mandate. They campaigned on balanced budgets, and they have to, show to New Brunswickers that they're making an attempt, a very sizable attempt, to move in that direction. So, there is going to be some difficult decisions. I remember, when we made cuts under our budget, we had to freeze salaries, but we also had to cut services. And if you recall, we tried to cut the ferry services that were being offered under the Department of Transportation, and everyone was up in arms at that time across New Brunswick. And then the Alberta government came in and actually restored those services, but it didn't fix the problem. So there has to be today, some very significant changes made on how government delivers services. And if I was the Premier, I'd want a whole bunch of people upset at me across the province, showing that these tough decisions are impacting everyone, not just a select group. But then New Brunswickers will also understand at the same time that, yes, we have to live within our means, and that's why the government is making these difficult decisions.
And you can probably apply all of what you've said to New Brunswick, or to Prince Edward Island and to Nova Scotia as well.
Exactly. Yeah. No, the region sadly is being impacted by, the tariffs. 2008, we had a dollar that was at par, which was even more difficult for our government because we lost that 30% adjustment on our exports. Today, the tariffs are impacting, our sale of goods into the U.S., but the exchange rate is cushioning that. So it comes down to now, either we grow the revenue, which the government, can't do overnight. You can't bring in $1 billion in new revenue.
Yeah.
So in Atlantic Canada, the governments have used raising taxes. I don't think is going to be an option because we are overtaxed in our region. So it is going to impact on the delivery of services and how we cost effectively deliver those services. Okay, well, you've given us lots to think about. Sean Graham, thank you for your perspective and for staying up late or getting up early, depending how you look at it. We'll talk to you when you get home. Cheers. We'll take a time out. We'll be right back.
February is Black History Month, recognizing able seaman William Hall. William Hall was the son of formerly enslaved parents who fled Maryland during the War of 1812 as refugees and settled in Nova Scotia. He was the first black person, the first Nova Scotian, and the third Canadian to receive the Victoria Cross.
In health news tonight, Ottawa plans to launch a national strategy on men's and boys' health this year. CTV's Amanda Debison has more in the Monday edition of The Lifeline.
Men's health advocates say a planned national strategy signals growing recognition of gaps in care for men and boys across the country.
Canada's health minister says the government aims to launch the strategy in 2026, working with multiple departments on mental health, prevention, and access to services. The Movember Institute says research shows men face higher risks of suicide and major illness and often encounter barriers when seeking help. Advocates say success will depend depend on sustained action and cross-party cooperation, not political debate. A new study finds how well a cancer treatment works may depend on the time of day it's given to patients. Researchers gathered more than 200 people who had the same kind of lung cancer and put them on the same type of treatments to fire up their immune systems. The only difference was that half the group got their medications earlier in the day and the other half got them later. The surprise finding was that the time of day made a difference. Patients who got their first rounds of treatments before 3 p.m. had, on average, about 5 more months before their cancers grew and spread, and they lived almost a year longer than those who got their treatments later in the day. They also had better odds of being alive at the end of the 2-year study. The researchers say they don't know yet why the time of day is impactful. The study was published in the journal Nature Medicine. Finally, there's a new reason to consider the Mediterranean diet. A new long-term study found that the plant-forward eating style may lower stroke risk for women. Researchers followed more than 100,000 women who were part of a study that began in 1995, and those who ate a Mediterranean diet were 18% less likely to have any type of stroke. The diet emphasizes vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, fish, and olive oil. It limits consuming meat and dairy and allows for moderate alcohol consumption. Past studies have found the Mediterranean diet may lower the risk for dementia, gum disease, depression, breast cancer, and diabetes. The new research was published in the journal Neurology Open Access. With Health and Medical News, I'm Amanda Deppison for The Lifeline.
Katie Kelly is off tonight. She will be back tomorrow with The Scene. With that, let's take a look at what's on CTV tonight. Taking a look at the markets, the Dow opened this trading week basically flat. Air Canada has halted flights to Cuba, and the decision is having an immediate effect on the airline's share price. Here's BNN Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscaya.
Shares of Air Canada ended the day in the red after the airline suspended flights to Cuba. Air Canada says the decision is because of an ongoing shortage of fuel on the island. The airline says it will be sending empty flights down to Cuba to return around 3,000 passengers. Shares of Air Canada ended the day down almost 5%. And the Canadian dollar is up 60 cents to end the day to 73.76. West Texas Intermediate climbed to 64.36. Western Canadian Select is up 47 cents to 48.04, and the TSX climbed to end the day ending just above 33,000. Those are your business headlines. I'm Lindsay Biscaya.
Sympathies go to the many Pats fans that are in the Maritimes, and they are a large group. But congratulations to an actual Seattle Seahawk fan, since you were a kid, right?
That's right, Todd. You know, growing up in West Coast of BC, that was the NFL team of choice. And yeah, it was, you know, I was really glad to see the Seahawks win. I hope next year's Super Bowl game, though, is a little more exciting.
Oh, boy. You and just about everybody else who watched.
It's a battle of two defensive giants there.
Different sport behind you, right?
I was about to say that. Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at our viewer picture for tonight. So this one's coming in from Hugh Harper. It was sent in from Lawrencetown Beach, Nova Scotia. Me and Todd were talking about this the other week, how the surfers are always out there, no matter the winter conditions. Hugh said it was about -2 with some flurries at this time. As for Lawrencetown for tomorrow, it's a mix of sun and cloud and a high temperature near 0. Here's our wake-up weather conditions for the Maritime region. You can see it's going to be a cold start to the day on Tuesday. Morning temperature several degrees below 0. PEI Nova Scotia at minus double digits in New Brunswick. Some flurries still for PEI in eastern areas of Nova Scotia. And throughout the day, that part of the Maritimes will still have a chance of some flurries. Other parts of the region, though, well, in New Brunswick, it'll be mostly sunny skies, except for a bit of a mix of sun and cloud around Moncton in the southeast. And a fair weather mix of sun and cloud expected in western areas of Nova Scotia. Most of the high temperatures tomorrow for the Maritimes be in the general range for around -5 to 0. Breezy winds out of the north and the northwest. Let's find out what's coming up on Your Morning Atlantic.
Tuesday on Your Morning Atlantic, Tangled Web.
We'll sit down with the RCMP to delve into the dangers facing young people on the internet and what you should know as a parent or guardian.
Start your morning with us Tuesday on Your Morning Atlantic on CTV2 and Crave.
And that's going to do it for us tonight. Bruce Frisco is here at 11:30. Our website and the CTV News app have updates anytime. I'm Todd Battis. Hope to see you right back here tomorrow night, 6 o'clock for your local news. Until then, have a good night.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.